The dead boy's face was as grey as a cloudy sky moments before a storm. His short black beard sculpted and whittled his cheeks down to a point. Thin lips glittered in the watery moonlight that managed to penetrate the canopy brighter than the famed rubies of his home province. But Vira knew it was blood that made them shine so enticingly. She lifted the flameless lantern higher. The ball of yellow light within crackled with magic as it washed over his embroidered sleeve, illuminating the row of silver fish encircling his wrist. A wave of nausea hit her. The crest of Onar. The scouts hadn't been wrong. This was her betrothed, Lord Harish, son of the Viceroy of Onar, now dead in the city of Dwar. Vira's legs wobbled as she rose from her crouch, but she steadied herself. A maharani didn't show weakness. She took a deep breath, squaring her shoulders before turning to face the warriors who had found the body. 3 girls stood in a row, dressed in matching red kurtas and loose black pants, whispering to one another. One leaned against a neem tree propped up by a shoulder, using the edge of a knife to file her fingernails. She straightened and nudged the others when she realized they'd garnered Vira's attention. "Where's his horse?" Vira's voice rang out sharper than she'd intended. The girl with the knife, who looked barely older than Vira herself, toyed with the end of her braid. "There wasn't one around here, Maharani. And his convoy? He didn't appear to be traveling with one." Vira bit back a snarl. These warriors, ones her council had claimed were the best in the country, were obviously missing something critical. Common sense. "Lord Harish did not journey here on foot with no mount and no supplies. Find them." For a moment, Vira thought the warriors would refuse. But then they bowed in unison, palms pressed together in front of their chests, before scattering into the woods without another glance behind them. Wind raked through the Swapna forest, and leaves from the mango and neem trees cascaded down, enveloping Vira in a cocoon of green and brown. Now that she was alone, an uncomfortable lurch tugged at her stomach. She looked down at Harish again. His kurta was light enough in color to reveal the 3 pools of blood that had killed him. An arrow pierced the center of each red stain, black feather fletchings quivering in the late summer breeze. He was to have arrived at the palace days earlier, but there had been no letter, no news of delay. And when he hadn't shown up, she'd assumed that he was a reluctant noble plotting an escape from a marriage he wanted even less than she did. She hadn't expected this. This wasn't the plan. It wasn't how any of this was meant to happen. She couldn't face the Viceroy of Anar. She couldn't face her council. She couldn't breathe. Reason broke through her haze of panic as her mother's voice sounded in her head. A maharani never runs away from a problem. She faces it head on. She could picture her mother's severe face as if she was standing right there, hissing the same lessons in Vira's ear 1,000 times, not expecting Vira to retain any of them. Face it head on. Find out who killed Harish, quickly. Guards had already been dispatched through the forest and the surrounding neighborhoods of Dwar, searching for witnesses, for any clues that might lead them to a suspect. But it had been more than an hour since the scouts had reported the body. If the guards hadn't yet found the killer, Vira had a sinking feeling that they never would. Find a way to appease the Viceroy. It would be only a matter of days before he learned of his son's fate, a precious few days in which Vira had to strike a new deal with him or find some other way to protect the country from Riya, the northwestern neighbor. Riya hadn't made a move in months, but the threat of war she'd inherited had been a constant shadow lingering over Vira's rule from the moment she had become Maharani 8 months earlier. "How do I do this, Amma?" But her mother had never offered comfort even when she was alive. Vira's hand drifted down to the iron hilt of the talvar strapped to her waist, as if it would give her strength. It had been pried from her dead mother's stiff hands and thrust into hers. It was polished and sharp, the curved silver blade gleaming, as if it had never been covered in the blood of her ancestors. It hummed against her hand with latent magic, a demanding buzz that Vira was still unaccustomed to.